The year 1998 had probably started off as a fun and happy time for many a family, but not for all. The beginning of the year was to turn out to be a sad, lonely, and devastating start to a new year for one family in West London that had to come to terms with the tragic loss of a daughter, sister, niece, and friend. The unsolved murder of the 15-year-old schoolgirl Hannah Deterville has to be one of the most disturbing, if not most horrific, I have ever read about or researched. After 26 years, this crime seems to have no resolution in sight and should not become a forever unsolved murder of somebody so young. Many a child has gone missing, many go home, many do not, and end up becoming one of the unfortunates that never return to the safety of their families. In such horrendous circumstances, Hannah became one of those unfortunates to never be seen with her family again. Hannah was a bright student who studied at the St. Thomas More Catholic School in Cadogan Street in Chelsea, just a 10-minute walk from the world-famous luxury department store Harrods and a short walk to Sloane Street. She was studying for her GCSEs and had an interest in athletics and a passion for drama. Her mother said of her that Hannah was always changing what she wanted to do after her education, which is no different from any other mid-teenager. She was a popular student at the school, being described as bubbly and fun-loving and streetwise among her friends and teachers. She was due to be confirmed at her local Catholic church around the time of her disappearance. Hannah and her family lived off the Harrow Road, which stretches between Paddington and Harrow. The family's home was located on 6th Avenue into the area of Kensal Rise. They were rather well known in the area as her mother, June, was very active in community projects, helped out in a big way in the Notting Hill Carnival every year, and was dedicated to her job with the NHS, National Health Service, and she was also a director of the Yaz Santawood Community Center. Hannah herself was well known by name by nearly all the shopkeepers along the Harrow Road at the time, and was friendly and chatty with many, if not all of them. Hannah's story starts on Friday, 2nd of January, 1998, when she left home at around 4:30 p.m. to walk the short distance to Alibis, a wool shop that was located along the Harrow Road. Hannah went there to purchase some gold thread that her mother had asked her to get for her. During that time at the wool shop, Hannah was overheard arguing outside of the shop with somebody, believed to be a male, for a short time. The owner of Applebee's asked Hannah if she was okay, to which she replied yes, and suggested that he was just a nutter or some other ridiculing term. Being a little concerned for Hannah's safety, the owner kindly offered to get her a taxi and that she would also pay for it, but Hannah politely declined before making her way back to the warmth and comfort of her home. Hannah spent the next couple of hours trying on new clothes in her room, and at one point, she went to see her mom for an opinion on her outfit. She asked her mom if she could go out that evening, and her mom seemed happy for her to do so, as long as she was home not too late. That would be the last time after saying goodbye to her mother and walking out of the door at around 7 p.m. that she would see her alive. Hannah was dressed that evening in orange jeans, a gray bomber jacket, and red Reebok trainers. After Hannah left home, there is no real way of knowing where she went after leaving her front door and who she was supposed to meet or where. Hannah could have gone north to Kilburn Lane, or back to the Harrow Road, or east to Queen's Park Gardens. Did she head for the Harrow Road for a bus? Or north towards either Kensal Rise Tube Station or Queen's Park Tube Station? Maybe the question should be: 1. Who was Hannah meeting? 2. Did her mother or any other friends and family know who she was meeting? 3. When was this meeting organized? How was this meeting organized? In person, by phone, a third party? I get the impression that Hannah would usually inform somebody, if not her mother, where she was going and with whom. It would be interesting to know if anybody was told about her plans concerning the 2nd of January. I have the impression that on the evening of the 2nd, her mom didn't know she had plans for that evening, meaning she had no idea who she was meeting. This does prompt further questions. Point 1. If Hannah was meeting an established friend, why not say so? 2. If this was a new friend, why the secrecy? 3. Somebody has to say it. Could the friend be a male with a possible romantic motive? There might be simple answers to these questions, and Hannah may have assumed her mother would recognize the friend as well known, meaning there should be no cause for concern, or her mother just assumed she was meeting up with a recognized friend. The second answer could be Hannah was meeting up with somebody her mother may not have approved of. Thirdly, when does a teenage girl shy away from telling the whole world she may have a new boyfriend? The answer to that is typically when it is a boy the parents would not have approved of. This would lead to a further question. If this is somebody that would not have been accepted, could this person be the last one to see her alive? All this is speculation and nothing more than random theory at this stage. Certain answers may be prompted by asking specific questions at times. Currently, after 26 years, this case remains unsolved, and I am convinced that there are people who hold valuable information that could lead to solving it. When Hannah did not arrive back home in the morning, her mother June got worried and called the police. Her mother started placing posters up around the West London area at a later date, and at one point contacted the media. June Deterville stated in an interview with the independent newspaper that the Metropolitan Police took 2 weeks for them to deem her, Hannah, as vulnerable, but it was not until 3 weeks after she disappeared that a police officer finally visited her home. Hints and thoughts suggested that the Met Police's unresolved issues in a case regarding the murder of Stephen Lawrence was still relevant when Hannah disappeared. Discovery of Hannah. More queries arise from the location where Hannah was discovered, necessitating further explanations. Regrettably, there are only 1 or 2 individuals who can possibly answer these queries, and unfortunately, one of them is deceased. On Friday, 23rd of January, 1998, a phone call was made to the gay and lesbian hotline, which was recorded at 4 p.m. The caller, a male, passed on information about a body that he came across and gave directions on where to find it. The directions were precise and direct and clear enough to follow. The man did not give his name or where he was calling from, but it could be rightly assumed that he called from a phone box. According to the Metropolitan Police, Hannah's body was located and found on January 24th, 1998, around 22 days after she went missing. Some reports over the years have put this date anywhere between Sunday the 25th to Tuesday 27th of January, which I now know to be incorrect, that I have been informed and advised that when Hannah was found, she was located inside 2 black bin bags, the connotations of which are too shocking to even think about, and even possible comments and mindless humor that may occur. It was also said that her feet were discovered to have been bound, but not too sure about her hands. Hannah was discovered to have suffered 20 stab wounds to her neck and face, with the only silver lining being that she died instantly from the first blow, rendering the subsequent 19 stabbings unnecessary, as noted in the post-mortem report. Being stabbed multiple times typically suggests that the perpetrator was very angry during the violent attack. I have also been told that the injuries to Hannah's neck and face may have happened primarily on the right side of her face. Hannah's body was located on common land called Horsenden Hill in West London, located between Perivale and Sudbury Hill, with Wembley just northeast of the beauty spot. She was found in dense woodland a good few feet from the trail called Capitol Ring, which is hidden enough for her not to be discovered for some considerable time, possibly weeks, which may have been the offender's intention. In the past, Horsenden Hill was famous for its scenic beauty and as a popular spot for gay cruising. One could consider that potentially helpful clues and information are being kept secret in this situation due to the location being a nighttime meeting spot for gay men. I will address this later during the analysis section of this writing. Nevertheless, in addition to being a popular location for gay individuals and numerous hikers and people walking their dogs, one must acknowledge that the person who dumped Hannah there must have been brave and willing to take chances due to the high level of activity in that area. I've been to the area and visited it on April 7th, 2024, along with journalist Chris Summers and an associate to look around and get a feel for the place. There were a few noteworthy points, and one thing is obvious. No one accidentally discovers Horsenden Hill, especially when traveling along Horsenden Lane North. Initially lined by houses, the road transitions into a narrow 2-lane street where driving fast is not possible. During nighttime, the outskirts of the hill are extremely dark and challenging to maneuver through. The area where Hannah was discovered is even more difficult to navigate, requiring familiarity with the pathways, which are uneven due to the hilly terrain. It is really important to know that Hannah was not raped or sexually assaulted in any way, and as far as I am aware, nor was any of her clothing missing or any of her possessions. While this may not be coherent to the average person, it is important to recognize that there are crucial pieces of information missing from the investigation. The perpetrator's actions may only be rational to them, which includes the disposal method and the treatment of the victim. Current silence is impeding the resolution of this case, but it is hoped that valuable information gained from knowledgeable individuals will shed light on the offender's behavior. Once obtained, This information will power a strategic investigation aimed at rectifying the injustice and bringing the offender to account, thereby providing justice for the 15-year-old victim. The crimes against Hannah cannot go unpunished. It has been 26 years since her murder. That's 26 years or 312 months, or 1,352 weeks, or 9,490 days. Too long. That analysis say a portrait of the perpetrator can only be based on what information is available, and that is criminal statistics and Hannah's disposal site. Taking this into consideration, we have the following. Sex of offender. Male. The overwhelming majority of women that are murdered in the UK are by men, and generally by men they know. Race of offender. Black. It may come to a surprise to some, but murderers tend to kill within their own racial groups. While this can be true for an overall majority of killers, on rare occasions there can be a crossover, where other racial groups are targeted. The offender drives. Not difficult to establish, as the movement of Hannah's body from Harrow Road area to Horsenden Hill, a distance of about 7 miles, could hardly be done any other way, other than the offender had a car or small van. Age of offender. Normally, the age of an offender can be difficult to establish, but the general pretext is the older the victim, the younger the offender, and the younger the victim, the older the offender. Hannah was 15 years old, and I would place the offender around late 20s to late 30s. Offender had help. The police investigation included a theory there were 2 people involved in the murder of Hannah, especially with the disposal of her body, and I have to agree. Horsenden Hill is not easy to navigate, nor would it have been easy to carry a body through there without help, on very hilly terrain and with steep steps. Knowledge of the areas. Without a doubt, this was 1998. There were no electronic satellite navigation tools, no electronic maps on mobile phones, just good old-fashioned knowledge and, if needed, a good old-fashioned A to Z of London. Horsenden Hill and the area that Hannah was found in could easily be lost to anybody who does not know the area, offender behavior, and makeup. While evidence is seriously lacking, we can take what we already have and try to extract further information from what is currently available. What we do know is Hannah vanished on 7 p.m. on January 2nd, 1998, and as far as I am aware, there appears to be no witnesses to say where she went or ended up, nor any witnesses that came forward to say they saw her that night after 7 p.m. The area surrounding 6th Avenue is very built up and can be rather busy. There is plenty of traffic, people, and buses, and within that area are 3 underground stations, namely Queen's Park, Willesden Junction Station, and Kensal Green Underground Station. Willesden Junction is also a mainline station, and all 3 are served by the Bakerloo Underground Line, while also being within walking distance of Hannah's home. The point being, there would have been plenty of people/witnesses around that night to say they saw Hannah or somebody resembling Hannah, and yet nobody did. This would advocate the possibility that whoever met with Hannah that night did so expeditiously, and more than likely with the use of a car. It is highly probable that the person Hannah encountered that evening is responsible for her death, or at the very least, is one individual who saw her before she died and was definitely parked along 6th Avenue. At the start of the investigation, the Metropolitan Police indicated that they believed Hannah was killed within a 12-hour time frame after her disappearance and was likely held for several days before being discarded. I have no doubts about it, because the police will examine post-mortem and forensic reports, which I don't have access to. But this statement does raise the question of where exactly on this planet she was taken and held for that duration of time. It appears that a lot of people are unaware that the A404, A405 Harrow Road runs from Edgware Road to the Sudbury Hill section of Harrow. It is worth noting that the end of the road is conveniently close to Horsenden Hill, making it easily accessible on foot. Hannah was found approximately 7.2 miles away from her front door, which would take around 30 to 40 minutes to drive to. Could it be that Hannah was taken and briefly kept somewhere along the lengthy Harrow Road? The location where she was found is unfamiliar to most people. Local understanding and familiarity are crucial. This was a local spot for gay cruising. It is a place frequented by pedestrians. There are few entrance and exit points, especially in the area where Hannah was. Is the perpetrators residing in Greenford, Wembley, or possibly Harrow, but having ties to the Queen's Park/Harrow Road vicinity? The focus should be on the opposites simultaneously. Is the perpetrators a resident of the Willesden, Harlesden, Harrow Road vicinity, but has a connection to Horsenden Hill through their upbringing or family ties, or has a job in either of these areas. In my opinion, evidence suggests that the individuals responsible for Hannah's murder are from the area, and I highly doubt that an outsider is involved. That I have used the term offender, but also hinted at a second person. Not sure if a second person is involved in the murder, but almost certainly was involved in the disposal of Hannah. The area she was found is hilly, rough in places, and is somewhat difficult terrain. I would find it hard to believe that one person managed to take Hannah, with dead weight, out of a car, up a steep hill, down a steep hill, and locate her where she was found in total darkness. There is no way Hannah was disposed of in daylight, given the volume of people that would have been around at that time, that I have no doubts that Hannah would have been taken to Horsenden in a car or small van. The car park along Horsenden Lane North on the southeast side of the hill is the most likely spot for the offender to park and discard Hannah's body. A stranger or somebody with a lack of knowledge of the area could quite easily miss the site by driving along the road. When I went to Horsenden Hill, I thankfully had somebody in attendance with superb local knowledge, and I was informed that while the car park now had a locked gate attached to it, back in 1998 that gate was never locked, even at night. The entrance to the Horsenden North Lane car park, that as you can see from the above photo, the gate today is locked and closed. Back in 1998, this gate was constantly open. If you look to the background, you will see the area, which looks rather countrified, greenery everywhere, and a two-lane road. If you take a short drive to the right, you will come to a pub on the right, and a very short distance further along you will come to a junction, and suddenly you are back into built-up London. Horsenden Lane North could be quite easily missed if you're coming in from that direction. Horsenden Lane North car park, that I believe, Hannah was transported to Horsenden in a car or small van, with the area in the car park on the southeast side of the hill, along Horsenden Lane North, being the most probable location for the culprit to park their vehicle. Backing up to this point would have provided cover from the road and allowed for easier disposal of Hannah's body. The sign at Horsenden Hill and right by the car park. The public thoughts around this investigation towards offender behavior is lacking in preciseness and clarity. Over the past couple of years, I have seen many questions asked and many answers given, but they always seem to miss what could be an obvious question. What happened to the car? I ask this as I have been informed that Hannah seemed to have been stabbed predominantly on her right side of her face and neck, leading to the possibility she was sitting in a passenger side of a car when she was murdered. Being stabbed in the way she was is going to leave substantial blood traces in the vehicle. Synopsis to whoever killed Hannah. If you are sleeping well at night, not disturbed by constant nightmares and images of the last few minutes of life that Hannah processed, that makes you disturbing, frightening, and made of pure evil. I feel if there were two people involved, then they have to be one of two things. They are either the best of friends, or the submissive in this collaboration is fearful of his master. Either way, the killer's partner is just as bad as the killer himself. You have kept secret the events of that terrible night for 26 years. You must be so proud of yourself. Or you are just a common coward with no outlet to bring this sorry and shocking tale to the conclusion many require, that if the two people are friends, regardless of their level of closeness, they are likely to be of similar ages. But the partner who is submissive would be slightly younger. They might have been in their mid to late 20s when the offense took place, so they would be approximately 51 to 56 years old now. Either way, the duo would have had a connection with each other prior to Hannah's murder, possibly for a few months or even a longer period of time. Given the time that has passed since Hannah's murder, has the friend she said she was meeting that night ever come forward? I am going to say no, which in turn allows for the assumption that the person she met was the person that took her life. This in turn provides further opportunities for more questions to be asked. Not just where did she go, but questions and queries that require further consideration either outside of the box or touching territory that many don't want to examine. I it outside the realms of logic that Hannah could have met her murderer at the offender's own home, say within a short distance from her front door, for example. We need to understand, how does a teenager dressed the way she was, in reasonably bright colors, just disappear without anybody seeing her? This is the real world, not a realm of fantasy and magic. People disappear for a reason. Given that Hannah was discovered in Horsenden Hill, a known meeting spot for the gay community, I know that authorities asked anyone who frequented the area to come forward. I would guess that nobody came forward to talk to the police back then because there was a lack of trust in law enforcement within the gay community. Nevertheless, a significant amount of time has passed, and perhaps stepping forward now could aid in the investigation. In my opinion, I would like to talk to anyone who frequented the Hill during that period, as you might have the information needed to answer these questions. Point 1. Exactly where did gay men meet up on the Hill? 2. What time frame was the Hill used by the gay community, and what days? 3. Was the car park in Horson Hill North, as shown above, used on these days for parking and/or for meeting? 4. Was there chatter among the gay community once Hannah was found concerning speculation of what happened? The responses to the aforementioned queries may help in establishing the moment Hannah was disposed of at Horsenden and at what hour. This data may result in additional information, leading to further investigation that could assist in other aspects of the case. That a message to all that if Hannah were alive and thriving today, she would be 41 years old and enjoying the best life she could create for herself. Hannah's life could have taken a different path today if it wasn't for the tragic events of January 1998, with possibilities including marriage, a career, and motherhood. She has been deprived of numerous experiences, watching life go by, enjoying with others, indulging in its pleasures and extravagances. Life should be a journey of dreams and happiness, not coming to a tragic conclusion, ending up in a woodland after being violently killed. That it is my belief that Hannah has been abandoned, which is partly true. Her mother revealed in an interview with a national newspaper that people have brought up to her potential reasons and individuals connected to the killing and hiding of Hannah's remains. I cannot understand why some individuals who are described as friends and associates of Hannah and seem to have important information refuse to speak to the police, especially after all this time. That I understand. In 1998, not everyone was naturally inclined to talk to the police and avoided such action at every turn. However, it's no longer 1998. It's now 2024. This is no more concerning how Stephen Lawrence was dealt with by the police, and this should not be about race or political activism. This concerns a 15-year-old female student who still deserves justice for her untimely death. It has been more than 26 years, and no one is being held accountable for their actions. Hannah's case should have a better outcome. If you are still afraid after all this time has passed, you can provide your information anonymously in a letter to the investigators. The greater number of people who participate in the process, the higher the chances of action being taken in favor of Hannah. This is about her now, not about personal grievances or prejudice. With a quarter of a century now past, the time to talk is now. Secrets are no longer valid or of concern. Secrets are keeping the killer/s of a schoolgirl free. Hannah needs your cooperation and needs your help. Bring down the wall of silence and do it today. The Metropolitan Police Service is to blame for more than just their past lack of actions and isolating a community. Their handling of this case also shows a lack of timing and awareness. Hannah's mother noted that it took 2 weeks for the police to acknowledge Hannah's vulnerability and an additional week to dispatch an officer to her residence. At that point, the perpetrator was 3 weeks ahead of the investigators and still increasing. During that period, what assistance did the authorities provide to Hannah? Her mother walked around the neighborhood posting flyers in search of Hannah, asking if anyone had seen her. It was not enough to send an officer to her home 3 weeks after she disappeared, and it is also inadequate to categorize her as vulnerable at a later time. Obviously, she was at risk because she was a schoolgirl. Hannah was wise about the city and self-assured. She traveled to and from Chelsea for school daily by herself. However, she vanishes after going out one night. So how much of a red flag should this have raised? I am surprised that the Metropolitan Police never sought more detailed information or held a press conference for the 25th anniversary of Hannah's Unsolved case in 2023. This would have been an ideal moment to re-present the case to the public and reinvigorate awareness of Hannah within society. How much additional time would it have taken for a detective superintendent to speak to the press for 30 minutes, urging for information and reassuring the community that Hannah is a priority? Instead of using this tactic, the police overlooked an opportunity to have Hannah's case widely publicized in newspapers, TV news, and online. Perhaps the authorities should consider taking action on this matter now, ideally not waiting another 26 years before they do so. Rest in peace, June Deterville.